Hi, this is Manjula Narayan, books editor, Hindustan Times, and this is Bookstack, the show where I pick the most interesting books I've got, in the last week or so. So, April 13th, as everybody knows, is the centenary of Jallianwala Bagh, the Amritsar massacre. One of the most horrible things that happened during the British Raj, and which propelled India to seriously fight for its freedom and not be a colony anymore. And a number of books have come out just in time to commemorate the event. And there's The Patient Assassin, A True Tale of Massacre, Revenge and the Raj by Anita Anand. And there's Khooni Vaisakhi, a poem from the Jallianwala Bagh massacre 1919 by Nanak Singh and translated from the Punjabi by Navdeep Suri, who's his grandson. So let's start with The Patient Assassin. Here, on 13th April 1919, thousands of civilians gathered peacefully in Jallianwala Bagh, a walled garden in Amritsar. In the eyes of both the Lieutenant Governor of Punjab, Sir Michael O'Dwyer, and his top military man in the city, Brigadier General Dyer, such gatherings were proof that a second Indian mutiny was brewing in the province. Dyer decided to use the meeting to teach the natives a lesson. Blocking the main exit with armoured cars, he marched in with his men and commanded them to open fire without giving any order to disperse. In the murderous 10 minutes that followed, hundreds fell dead and many more were wounded. According to legend, Udham Singh was among the injured that day, and picking up a handful of blood-soaked earth, he vowed to take revenge on those responsible. More than 20 years later, in Westminster Hall, he gunned down O'Dwyer in cold blood to fulfill that promise. His actions made him a martyr in India, and to this day, his name is revered. But what happened in the intervening years? In this sweeping narrative that takes the reader across 4 continents, Anita Anand separates reality from myth to reveal Singh's astonishing story. She brilliantly pieces together his movements and the people who inspired and helped him, discovering surprising new links that take us from jazz-age New York to the shady world of international spy rings, from poverty-stricken London bedsits to movie sets. The Patient Assassin shines a devastating light on one of the Raj's most horrific events, but reads like a taut thriller as Singh's moment of destiny draws ever nearer. So clearly a really interesting book, and something that's come out just in time for the centenary of Jallianwala Bagh. The Patient Assassin, A True Tale of Massacre, Revenge and the Raj, Anita Anand. So if you ever wondered, what happened to the survivors, what did Udham Singh do, what motivated him, his story, here you have it. Then the other book is the Khooni Vaisakhi, which is originally written in Punjabi. 22-year-old Nanak Singh joins the mass of peaceful protesters agitating against the Rowlatt Act. What then turns out to be one of the worst atrocities perpetrated by the British Raj and a turning point in India's independence movement also becomes a life-changing experience for Nanak Singh, who survives the massacre unconscious and unnoticed among the hundreds of corpses. After going through the traumatic experience, Nanak Singh proceeds to write Khooni Vaisakhi, a long poem in Punjabi that narrates the political events in the run-up to the massacre and its immediate aftermath. The poem was a scathing critique of the British Raj and was banned soon after its publication in May 1920. After 60 long years, it was rediscovered and has been translated into English for the first time by the author's grandson, Navdeep Suri. Featuring the poem in translation and in original, this bilingual book also has essays by Navdeep Suri, Punjabi literature scholar H.S. Bhatia, and BBC correspondent Justin Rowlatt. And Justin Rowlatt's the first thing, when I read the preface, I flipped through the book, and it's indeed quite moving, even in English. Usually translations, you think, oh my god, it can never catch the original flavor. And of course, it's difficult to catch the original flavor, but Khooni Vaisakhi actually manages to do that, and is quite moving. There's some parts where I thought, oh my god, it was really, it catches the, what happened, the horror of what happened at Jallianwala Bagh. Justin Rowlatt was the South Asia correspondent of the BBC, and I think his great-grandfather was responsible for the Rowlatt Act, and he's written an essay at the end, which is quite moving and is quite, it's really a good essay, which kind of puts, makes you think of, the Raj and, well, how things have changed, how the world has changed and how perspectives have changed, and how people have changed. I mean, clearly his great-grandfather was somebody else and he's somebody else, and how circumstances have changed all of us. Well, very profound. The commemorative edition of Khooni Vaisakhi is not only a poignant piece of protest literature, but also a historical artifact and a resurrected witness to how Sikhs, Hindus and Muslims came together to stand up to colonization and oppression in one of India's darkest moments. There are some stanzas where he's describing all the people who've fallen, and they're Hindus, they're Muslims, they're Sikhs. The colonial experience was common to all of us, and considering what has happened to the nation and what is happening now, it also gives you some degree of hope for the future. So that's Khooni Vaisakhi by Nanak Singh, translated from the Punjabi by Navdeep Suri. And then finally, a book I'm really very excited about, A.K. Ramanujan's Journeys, A Poet's Diary, edited by Krishna Ramanujan and Guillermo Rodriguez. So A.K. Ramanujan is well known as one of the finest poets, translators, folklorists, essayists and scholars of the 20th century. His translations of ancient Tamil and medieval Kannada poetry, as well as of U.R. Ananthamurthy's novel Samskara, are considered classics in Indian literature. A pioneering poet, he had produced during his lifetime 4 poetry collections in English and 3 in Kannada. However, little is known about the personal material that is contained in the AKR papers, a large treasure of literature, journals, diaries, notes Ramanujan left behind in his prolific career, his literary footprints. He had intended to publish many of these private writings, but never did. After his premature death in 1993, the papers, spanning 49 years from 1944 to 1993, were given by his family to the Special Collections Research Center, the Joseph Regenstein Library of the University of Chicago in June 1994. Edited by Krishna Ramanujan and Guillermo Rodriguez, Journeys offers access to Ramanujan's hitherto unpublished personal diaries and journals from the papers, meticulously preserved at the University of Chicago, shining new light on his creative process. It includes accounts from his travels, his thoughts on writing, many improvised as well as early poetry drafts and dreams, the fertile grounds where the seeds for much of his later published work were planted. So, if you love poetry, especially, folklore especially, and a really, that generation of Indian poets was also fascinating, because a lot of them were as accomplished both in English and in their mother tongue, and sometimes even in another language. So, which is a skill that's being lost to a lot of Indians who are brought up only with English, or only with English as the main language, and not, it's a loss. So A.K. Ramanujan, and not just because of that, because of the breadth of his work and and really the inspirational and fantastic quality of it. Just go out and get this. Journeys, A Poet's Diary, A.K. Ramanujan.